Good evening and good morning, everyone. Onegaishimasu. I hope everyone is well. I'm going to read to you two different shokushu tonight. The first one is Living Calmness, number 7. In a natural state, the weight of objects is always underside. The experience of calmness in our body occurs when every part of our body is naturally underside. Calmness is the state of mind that reflects all things clearly, like the still surface of water. If there's a moon, the moon appears. Please mute yourself. Okay, I'm sorry. Calmness is a state of mind that reflects all things clearly, like the still surface of water. If there is a moon appears. If there is a flying bird appears. Calmness is our original and natural state. If we can understand this, we can experience true living calmness. Japanese word for this is seishi. And then I would like to also read tonight for you a closely related shokushu number 14, Fudoshin. True Fudoshin is not an unmoving mind, but the condition that becomes infinitely close to the still state, but is never still. In other words, a calm state arises from infinite movement. By absorbing all things into this movement, that becomes infinitely smaller and smaller, we can experience Fudoshin. This state does not fluctuate even if 10,000 mountains collapse around us. Fudoshin means unmoving or immovable. Shin means mind. Many people ask me often if the feeling they're having is the feeling that I'm talking about, or that Toysensei is pointing to always. What we're talking about is a feeling that you know well already. It's not foreign. You don't have to achieve it. You don't have to go somewhere to find it. Of course, it's your natural state. It's the state which you experience as feeling, the state of mind you had before you were born, when you were in your mother's womb. And once you were born, you still experience it. But gradually, as we grow, more and more and more things begin to take our interest and provide more shallow, but sometimes very pleasant and sometimes very frightening feelings. And they tend to take our attention. And gradually, as we become older, and this is years, we forget. So we lose track. We don't really know. We lose so much track that you have to ask someone like me, what is this feeling? Is this correct? Is this the feeling you're talking about? So Toy Sensei does his best job as he can in these shokushu. That's what they're for, is to explain or to suggest, sometimes by metaphor, sometimes by pointing to an experience, what the experience of mind-body unification or Fudoshin actually is. It shouldn't be foreign to us. And once you fall into it, then you'll laugh at yourself because you'll see, oh, I already knew this. This is my natural state. Of course, it's very familiar to you. You are experiencing it right now. But can you accept it? We have the idea that it's something different. It's something very highfalutin, something that needs to be obtained, or that only certain kinds of people or certain other people than us maybe experience this. Maybe you've been in nature. I think if you see, over here, it's not as often with the ocean, because the ocean is almost always nervous in moving. And in the beginning, it's nice to find a perfectly still spring morning when the sun is out and there's not a breath of wind and it's silent and still. If you can find such a day and find the time to sit down and enjoy with a tree or with a lake, or even in a forest if you're lucky enough. If you sit there for a little while, you will notice that there is a very, very intense thing happening. Even though everything is calm, everything's quiet, and everything's still surrounding you, and you may feel very calm and still, if you really notice what you're feeling, it's incredibly intense. And this is what Toi Sensei is pointing to when he talks about Fudoshin. The movement of the universe is infinitely rapid. Infinitely, of course, it doesn't just mean very fast. So infinity doesn't mean, oh, it's very far away. No, that's very far away. Infinity means you can't conceive. We cannot think infinity, whether it's out there or in here, becoming infinitely smaller or becoming infinitely larger. We can't conceive of this. We can't think about this, but we can feel it. And when we're alone in nature, actually, the reason we sit down and meditate at all times, which we're going to do tonight, key breathing, key meditation, whole body meditation, this is to experience and just rest in, settle in, not to do anything with this feeling, this experience of infinity, of infinitely rapid movement. No, not to do anything with it, just to sit in it, just to rest in it, just to be grateful for the opportunity to be here in it. So let's begin with some key breathing. So sit up straight, support yourself, close your eyes. Well, so that ki is a kind of a key test in meditation. If we are experiencing the Fudoshin, the infinite movement of the universe, in other words, if we're in deep state of attention, because this is very intense and so pay attention to it requires great attention, and you hear that sound, then you will go right through you like your spine becomes like a lightning rod, and it just goes into the earth. Of course, if you're thinking about dinner later, or some problem you have, or some issue, of course, then it will enter your body and disturb you. You can become calm right away after, that's fine. But you will know at that instant whether the degree to which you're in attention. So we often make kiai during this last period of meditation. One night, Suzuki Sensei, I saw him on the meditation night. He brought a 5-gallon plastic bucket to the dojo. And I forgot that it was there, but I wondered at the time why he had brought a plastic bucket. We're right in the middle of meditation, and he sneaks over and takes his plastic bucket and throws it down the stairwell. Bam, 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 bam. And some people actually stood up and ran toward the stairway to find out what it was. But it's because we get used to hearing his kiai, or you get used to hearing my kiai. And so even if it surprises you a little bit, it only does for a fraction of a moment, and then you're good with it because you know what it is. You can identify it. But when he threw that bucket down the stairwell, none of us knew what was going on. And so he said, this is a much better test to find out if you're paying attention. So please, if you have any comment about this or question, please tell me, say something.
Sensei, good morning.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned this because when we were in Hawaii 2012 and we trained in Hilo, our daughter was with us, as you know, and she was sitting in the back of the dojo and not minding what we train. And at the end of the class, Pakele Sensei was teaching this time. And we were at the end of the class, everybody was sitting in meditation. And I had never before experienced a test with Kiai, you know? So I thought we're doing meditation here. And she walked behind us very silently. And then suddenly Kiai. And I went for a brief moment, yeah. And I heard our daughter in the back, she was reading a book in the gymnasium, you know, in the very back of the gymnasium, and she dropped her book to the floor. So it was a very interesting experience. So nowadays, of course, as you say, we get more accustomed to these kind of tests. But still, I don't think you can ever get completely accustomed to a kiai like this, and you don't feel it. I don't think so. But what I experienced now was this little bloop, this energy coming from. So your kiai went right to the one point, as you said, and then I felt this energy going up. And it went back. And in silence. So I watched this going on. So it was very interesting experience. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. That's great. Yes, everybody knows what you're talking about. We've all had that experience. And so, like when we're even in the grocery store, we're going through our daily life. You know, my grandchildren, they don't do this anymore, but when they were younger, their big deal was to try to scare grandpa. And of course, it's a hard thing to do, even though they were very clever about ways they were thinking of it, you know. And finally, they just gave up. But, you know, Toi Sensei used to, there's a story about Toi Sensei. He said, if you can touch me with bokan, I'll give you a high rank to anybody. And people would wait behind doors with a bokan to whack him when he came through the door. And they would wait. Even one guy tried to jump down on him from above somewhere. He had a whole long story about it. No one ever touched him. And that's because he's practicing all the time. He's always in this intense state of attention. And I'd kind of like to say something about that because I discovered something that is important, I think. You know, when we're practicing learning to pay attention, paying attention is like being in Fudoshin. So the deeper your attention and the more inclusive your attention is, and the less distractible that attention is, the more capacity you have to pay attention, the greater clarity there is. Everything's clear. Like, so in our world, the physical is clear. The material world is clear. But the key world, the Fudoshin world, is a more unclear. The more you can pay attention, the more the unclear becomes clear. This is what we're doing. We are making the unclear clear. And as that happens, as it becomes clearer, there actually becomes more room for you in this. That which was unclear and is now becoming more and more clear. It means it's creating more room, a bigger space of energy, because there's more energy that requires that. Because your energy was trapped in all these little attentive needs. But as those begin to drop away, then all the energy that was wrapped up in them comes into this whole. And that's what I mean by making the unclear clear, and making it creates more space for you. Of course, some people would call this gaining power. And I think that's true, but we have to be careful about how we use the word power, because we think that's something we could use to control other people or to manipulate the universe. Okay, I'll shut up. Someone else. Crystal, please say something.
Okay. As you make the ki, I had a little wave in me, like Olaf Sensei told, and then I get even more calm. It goes directly to my one point, and I feel like going deeper or calmer and intense. And before, in doing the meditation, I was a little bit struggling to because the energy level was so high, and I had a little bit resistance, or I had a resistance against it. And after that, you put me in my center or through this ki. Toby Sensei did it once again, doing a key test, and at this point, it is years ago, I was not distracted, but now it's doing the meditation sessions with you, Sensei. It's often very intense, and sometimes it's okay, and sometimes I have a resistance because it's a kind of overwhelming sometimes.
Ah, yes. Very good. Thank you. Very good. Very good. So it's all in this process. There isn't some place you're aiming for, right? Don't think that there's some other more clear space that you're trying to. I didn't mean to create ambition there when I made that idea about clarity. It's just that it happens sort of on its own, but there's nothing we can do about it. We just pay attention. And if you're experiencing the intensity, even if you're resisting it somewhat, it means you're paying attention. That's what counts, that you experience it. So we experience Fudoshin, but not always clearly. Sometimes we experience it in a way that we don't like it, because we have some kind of resistance to this, subconscious maybe even. We don't know. We think things are not going well today. Oh, they're going very well. You're just not paying attention. It's kind of the idea. This is what my teacher taught. The Suzuki sensei taught me privately about this kind of sitting. Sometimes we had to sit 3 or 4 hours together in the morning. And it got so rocky that I complained. And he said, oh, you just resisting. Don't resist. Okay, someone else, please. Someone from Hawaii, like Carlos Boyer. Are you here? Ah, there you are.
I'm here, Sensei. Good evening. Yeah, thank you very much. Well, yeah, this is a very interesting topic for me because I've been getting glimpses of energy, awareness, whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure how to define, but I was telling Celine just I think last night that, you know, for we were talking about some of these topics, and that I hadn't had, you know, there had been no glimpses for quite some time. Yeah, and I told her, you know, and not too long ago, you know, I just stopped looking, maybe just stopped trying, stopped expecting. And then this kind of energy started showing up, glimpses of this thing. And I think I mentioned something to you at our last seminar about this. So yeah, and it was like the resistance for me was the expectation. I wanted to experience something. Of course, then it's, you know, who is this that wants to experience it? And so that it started to just maybe allow it to drop away a little bit.
Thank you. That's great. You know, yeah, just in closing here, let me just remind us that this is always present. It doesn't come from somewhere. There's no, where would it come from? This is always here. It's just that when we have a kind of idea, the way we think about how it is how it is. In other words, we make our own prison and we make our own liberation. And don't misunderstand me. It doesn't mean you can control things. It means that when we learn to pay attention, we begin to, the need for confirmation begins to drop away. And when that happens, we just naturally perceive more of what we're swimming in, what is surrounding us, what we're actually made of, the very molecules that we're made of. This is Fudoshin. Okay, so thank you very much for tonight. I really enjoyed sitting with you tonight. I appreciate it when you're here. Domo arigatou gozaimashita. See you soon.